Holley Sniper EFI. So I've had the Holley Sniper system and the 383 stroker in my rock buggy for about a year now, and I really like it. I think it's the best value and simplest option to put fuel injection on an older style engine. It's fantastic, but for off-road use, there are a couple quirks with this system, so there's some modifications I've made over the past year, and I'm going to go over those in this video. Even though I really enjoyed the Holley Sniper EFI system over the last year on my rock buggy, you know, I do kind of have a gripe, and, you know, it's kind of a major issue. You know, I even got to think in the last few months it's almost a make or break issue for me. And that's that the throttle curve on this thing is so damn aggressive that, you know, you give the gas pedal a little tiny bit of input and this thing just wants to take off like a rocket. I mean, I have 42-inch tires on this rock buggy, and you know, I barely cracked the throttle on this thing, like 10%. And, you know, I'm spinning rubber. So, you know, I don't like that. And basically what I found is the reason for this is the Sniper system. You can see right here with the linkage. When you just barely crack open the linkage, you could see the primaries and the secondary move together. So basically you press down on the gas pedal, and all four barrels are opening up at the same time. You know, not only does this give it too much power with a little bit of throttle input, but also when you initially press the pedal, you're working against two springs. You're working against the primary and the secondary throttle springs. So, you know, the pedal's really harsh. I mean, you're pushing on it, you're pushing on it, you're pushing on it, and then it gives and the vehicle just wants to jump, just wants to haul ass. And, you know, that's really good for drag racing, or maybe something like autocross or something. You know, even, you know, it's manageable maybe in a street car. But for an off-road rig, for a rock crawler, that sucks. I mean, that's there's no control at all. And I've actually flopped a couple of times on obstacles because I didn't have any control. You know, and I press in a little bit to try to get my tires moving. And then bam, it finally breaks and the tires start moving and the thing just launches. So that's not good. I need more control. Well, the reason all four of these are opening at the same time is because the Sniper comes with a 1-to-1 linkage right here. By 1-to-1 ratio, I mean that when the primary is open, the secondary is also open. We don't want that. So, luckily, the guys over at EFI Pros sell a fixed and an adjustable progressive throttle linkage for the Sniper. And I ordered the fixed throttle linkage. You know, this rock buggy is basically built for reliability and durability. And, you know, the fewest amount of adjustable doodads I put on here, the better. You know, and the fixed linkage starts opening. I'm sorry, the progressive linkage that I ordered, you know, it starts opening the secondaries at about 40% throttle position, which should be really good. You know, I won't have double the spring pressure when I start pushing down on the pedal. And when it does start delivering power, you know, it's only going to be the primaries opening up till about 40%, and then the secondaries will kick in, and that'll give me a really smooth power curve. So I'm hoping that really solves the issue here, because it is a major issue if you want to go with the Holley Sniper system and you off-road a lot. So, you know, I'm going to put the new linkage in, do a little bit of tuning for it, and I'll get back to you and tell you how it went. Okay, so This is the 1-to-1 linkage that I pulled off the factory Holley Sniper throttle body. It's the 1-to-1 linkage. And this is the fixed progressive linkage that I ordered from EFI System Pros, and you know, it's noticeably different. So let's go ahead and install this. Okay, so I got the new linkage installed. You know, it goes in the top hole instead of the bottom hole on the primary linkage. And you know, literally it took 5 minutes, probably less than 5 minutes, probably like 2 minutes, and a set of needle nose pliers to change out. Super easy to do. Okay, and you could see with the new progressive link installed, you could see there goes the primaries. See the difference? Instead of the primaries and secondaries opening at the same time, watch. Primaries opening, 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 grabs right there, then the secondaries start. You can see it in here better. Watch the throttle plates. See that's the primaries right there, and then watch, I'll go to about 40%. Bam, then the secondaries start to open. So I can already tell that this is going to make a big difference. Just moving the throttle lever by itself without the secondaries going off, I can already tell the input's a lot easier. So let's get a new tune in this thing, update the firmware, and see what happens. Okay, and what I did here was I checked the throttle positioning sensor on this thing, and even though this is advertised as opening up the secondaries at 40%, it was really opening up the secondaries at 50%. And that's a little bit too much for me. I don't really like that. I wanted it closer to 40, so used a set of channel locks, and I bent it in slightly, and now you can see right there, that's where it engages the secondaries. 41%. Right there. So I'm pretty happy with that, with the secondaries getting engaged at 41%. So I'm going to run it around a little bit and do some data logging on it. See how I like it. You know, even though I really didn't like the 1-to-1 ratio throttle linkage, I did have a really good tune for it. So in case I ever want to go back, or in case of an emergency, what I did is I downloaded this tune and all the data from it as a config file down onto this SD card from the ECU, and I pulled the SD card, and I'm going to start over on a completely fresh, clean config file to do the tune for this progressive linkage. Of course, I'm going to transfer over, you know, some of the timing and field data from it, but I'm going to completely start with a new file from this, and I want to do that because I had an really old version of firmware on here from like December or November of 2017, and you know, I upgraded to the new ECU program, the new firmware for the handheld, and you know, since I'm doing that, I'm going to start with a completely new config file. So I really like this old one though. It's really good for the 1-to-1 linkage. I have a lot of data on it, a lot of data logs. So I saved it onto this. I pulled the card. I have everything I need on here, and I'm going to save this. Okay, so I keep some spare parts bins for my rock buggy and my tow rig in case I need to work on anything. You know, and I keep this sealed Ziploc bag with all of the Holley paperwork in it in case I need to go back and reference something if I'm having problems. But inside this bag, I'm going to put my old 1-to-1 linkage, and my SD card that has the config file for running this one-to-one linkage in case I need to go back, or in case there's, you know, the other my new config file becomes corrupted, or the SD card goes to shit, or, you know, I just might not like running the progressive link. So saving this. Put it in the bag. Zip up the bag and put it in with my spare engine and electrical parts. So you can see right here in the 3.5-inch touchscreen, I have progressive TBI linkage enabled, and the TPS switch at 40% for that. But you're not done here. You also need to save the tune, pull the SD card, and do a little bit of tuning in the AE versus TPS settings. So we'll go do that right now. You can see right here, this is the acceleration enrichment correction versus TPS adjustment for the one-to-one linkage. And you can tell by looking at this that basically from 0% TPS all the way to 100, all 4 throttle plates and all 4 injectors are working continuously through the whole throttle range. Now with the progressive linkage installed, we're going to change this. I'm going to show you kind of what I changed it to. Okay, now that my progressive linkage has been installed and I did a firmware update, I'm going to show you. You're going to go up here to fuel, and you're going to go down to acceleration enrichment, and then back up to AE correction versus TPS. And you could see this is my graph, my modified graph for running a progressive throttle linkage. You could see initially I had this flat going up to 40% because that's when my secondary is open. But you know, I did a little bit of adjusting, and I basically found out that having it kick in right there, ramp up, and then work its way back down has worked great. And this tune works fantastic. So, you know, you could go into your 3.5-inch handheld and switch the progressive linkage setting on and put 40% in it or whatever. But, you know, you're still going to, you know, even though your secondary throttle plates aren't opening under 40%, it's still going to be feeding it fuel. You know, and that's a waste of fuel and probably not good for the system. So you need to change your AE correction versus TPS settings. And this is what I did. But as you can see, running pretty damn good. Looking good. Another issue I had with my Holley sniper was that, you know, when I'd open up the throttle to about, I don't know, 30, 40, 50%, I'd get a pretty nasty whistle. I mean, there was no harm in the whistle, but it was just really annoying. You know, I even had somebody ask me one time if I had a vacuum leak. Had one guy asked if I had a turbo, but, you know, I really didn't like it. You know, so what I did is, you know, I did a little bit of research, you know, and people were buying one of the Mr. Gasket spacers, and I bought that Mr. Gasket spacer. But you know what? The bores, the throttle bores in the sniper are bigger than your standard throttle bores. So a lot of those gaskets, you know, they impede flow. So I actually measured the bores in the intake and in the sniper, and I found a 4-barrel spacer that matches it. I'll post a link up to it, but this is the Canton Racing spacer. It's only a 1/4 inch tall, so it you know, it only raises the system another 1/4 inch, which isn't bad. You know, everything still fits under the hood fine. But the material this is made out of also, you know, first let me say it did eliminate the whistle. Totally eliminated the whistle, like a miracle cure. But one of the other things it did, which I wasn't expecting, was when I first ran this with just the gasket on the intake right here, you know, I could touch this and it was pretty hot after a day of off-roading, you know, which probably isn't good because the ECU's right here. You know, the ECU and all the electronic sensors are integrated into the throttle body. So, you know, you really don't want this getting hot. But what I found is with this Canton racing spacer, with the phenolic material it's made out of, it actually insulates the throttle body from the intake. And now when I touch it, it's just barely warm. You know, running all day, it's just barely warm. It's not hot at all. So, you know, if for nothing else, yeah, it cured the whistle, but I think that's an even better benefit to running that. And I'll post the link to that spacer now. Also, in case you haven't noticed, Holley strongly recommends that you run a secondary throttle return spring on the system just like you would a normal carburetor. And the reason for this is that Holley claims that the springs on the primary and secondary linkages aren't really strong enough to work as return springs. And, you know, I guess I saw some other people running snipers without a secondary return spring, so I figured I would, and I ran it that way for about a month, and I was actually having problems with the throttle linkage returning back to the zero TPS position with my foot off the gas pedal. I was constantly putting my foot behind the pedal and giving it a little nudge back in order to reset the TPS back to zero. And, you know, I since did a little bit of research. I actually talked to Holley. They said, yes, absolutely. You need to run a secondary return spring just like any carburetor would. So I installed this, and I never had a problem again with the TPS returning to zero. So I guess it does need it. And, you know, this is one of those generic brackets that goes behind the throttle, you know, and the spring hooks up on the back side of it. But, you know, I'm running my coil and some other stuff back there, and I really don't have any enough real estate back there to run a spring, especially since I'm running a solid Heim-jointed rod up as a throttle linkage from the back of the gas pedal up to the throttle body. So, you know, there's no room back there to run a spring on the other side, so I'm running it on this side, you know. Might be a little bit uglier than your average install, but it works, and it's pretty much all I can figure out right now. So, looks like everything's running really good. You know, we got a really beautiful California sunset in the background. All is good.